I kept hearing movement on the other side of the room, except I didn't have a roommate anymore. It started off small, the kind of thing you could explain away if you really wanted to. A creaking bed frame, a drawer left open, a cup that wasn't in the sink the night before. But when it kept happening, and no one else was supposed to be in that room, I stopped being able to explain anything. I'm Lena. I started as a freshman at a mid-sized university in Illinois last fall. First time living away from home. Nervous, excited, all of that. My dorm room was on the third floor of this weird concrete-heavy building that smelled like mildew on humid days and burned popcorn the rest of the time. My first roommate was Bree. We weren't best friends or anything, but we got along okay. She was quiet, respectful, played acoustic guitar sometimes, smoked out the window when she thought I was asleep. I didn't care. It was her way of coping with classes, I guess. Then, like 4 weeks into the semester, she left. No warning, no blow-up fight. One morning, I woke up and half her side of the room was empty. Her bed stripped, closet cleared, drawers yanked open. No note, no text. Later that day, I got an email from housing saying she'd formally withdrawn and was heading back home. They told me I'd be assigned a new roommate in the coming weeks. But until then, I'd have the room to myself. At first, it was kind of a relief. More space, more quiet. I even rearranged the furniture a little, pushed my desk into the corner, and used the extra bed to pile up laundry. I didn't feel like folding. It felt like I finally had breathing room. But then things started happening. The first time I noticed it, I had just come back from a late-night study session at the library. I opened the door, tossed my bag on the chair, and paused. The desk chair was turned out from the desk, facing the bed, not how I'd left it. I brushed it off. Maybe I bumped it when I dropped my bag, or maybe I was just tired. But that night, as I was falling asleep, I heard the springs in the other bed creak, just once, sharp, like someone had shifted their weight. I sat up and stared across the room. The bed was empty. Still, I got up, turned on the light, checked the closet. Under the bed, everything was in its place. I told myself buildings make noises, old pipes, thin walls. It was a dorm, not a hotel. But the next morning, there was a mug in the sink. Used, lipstick mark on the rim. Not mine. I hadn't had coffee in days. That meant when I started keeping track. I fawed text friends whenever something happened. Desk chair moved again. Heard breathing last night. Closet door open in the morning. They joked at first. Told me to lay off the Red Bull. One friend asked if I was sure Bree hadn't come back. That made me curious. I pulled up her Instagram and sent her a message. Something casual at first, just asking if she was okay, if things were all right. She didn't respond. Meanwhile, the noises kept getting worse. Sometimes I'd wake up around 3 or 4 in the morning, convinced someone had just exhaled next to me, like the sound of a person lying in bed, close enough to touch. I started sleeping with the light on. I set my phone to record audio while I slept. Just left it on the desk, screen down, mic pointed toward the center of the room. The next morning I played it back while brushing my teeth. For the first hour, nothing. Then, around 2:47 a.m., there was a soft rustling, like sheets moving. Then what sounded like a low cough, very faint. My stomach dropped. I checked the windows, locked. I checked the door, still dead-bolted. I told Ray. She kind of laughed it off, said it was probably sleepwalking, or stress. She suggested I try earplugs. So I did. For 2 nights. The third night, I woke up in the dark, to the sound of a breath, this slow, heavy exhale, coming from the other side of the room. I yanked out the earplugs, and turned on the lamp. Nothing. But the closet door was half open, and I never leave it that way. That was it. I messaged Bree again, more direct this time. Hey, this is going to sound insane, But did anything weird ever happen in our room? It took her a full day to reply. When she finally did, the message was short. One sentence. I don't want to talk about that room. Just sleep somewhere else. I stared at the screen for a long time. That night, I asked my friend Cassie if I could crash in her room for a few days. She didn't ask why, just said yes. I packed a bag and left my dorm without looking back. 2 nights later, I went back during the afternoon, just to grab a few more things. Cassie came with me. Safety in numbers, I guess. When we opened the door, the room was quiet. Too quiet. My bed was made, but not the way I'd left it. The blanket was tucked in at the corners. One of my old t-shirts, the one I hadn't worn in weeks, was folded neatly on the pillow. Cassie looked at me, confused. Did you come back earlier? I shook my head. No. We left fast. I didn't grab anything else. Later I went to housing and asked about the security cameras. They checked the footage for the past 3 nights. No one had entered or exited my room. Not even me. But someone had made the bed. At the end of the semester, when winter break came around, the building was cleared out. Maintenance crews went in to do their usual inspections. One of the guys, older guy, been with the university for years, called campus police after opening a closet panel in my old room. Behind it, hidden by a false wall, was a crawl space. Dusty, dark, barely wide enough for a person to slip through. Inside they found food wrappers, a blanket, and what looked like scratch marks on the wall. No one ever told us who or what had been hiding there. And I never went back to that dorm. I don't care if it was a squatter, a student, or something worse. Sometimes, at night, I still wake up thinking I hear someone breathing right next to me. But I always sleep with the closet door shut now. And I always check it twice. Every night at 3:17 a.m., someone knocks once on every door. Not loudly, not aggressively, just one firm, deliberate knock. Then silence. Then the next door. And no one sits ever in the hallway. It started about a week into the semester. I said, I'm Dylan, sophomore. I go to a small college in New England, the kind with ivy-covered buildings, drafty classrooms, and dorms that creak in the wind. I got assigned to a single room on the top floor of Goodwin Hall. Everyone just calls it the Tower. It's an older dorm, real old, made of red brick with pipes that moan and heaters that either fry you alive or do nothing at all. But the top floor is quiet, and that's why I liked it. Only 7 rooms, and most of the people up here are like me, introverts, night owls, or people who just want to be left alone. It was maybe the 5th or 6th night when I first noticed it. I'd stayed up late, working on a paper. Around 3:15, I got up to refill my water bottle. That's when I heard it. Knock. Just once. Right at my door. I froze. Then I heard another knock. This time a bit farther down the hall. Then another. It wasn't rushed. Whoever it was, they waited 5 or 6 seconds between doors, like they were pacing it, methodically moving down the line. I opened my door and peeked out. Nothing. The hallway lights were dim like always, flickering slightly from age, and the air had that dry, dusty stillness you only get in buildings that haven't changed in 50 years. No footsteps, no whispers, just empty hallway stretching in both directions. I thought maybe it was a prank, some bored upperclassman messing with us. But it happened again the next night. 3:17 a.m. Knock. Pause. Knock. Same rhythm. Same pattern. My door first, then room 604, then 605. I pressed my ear to the door the third night and waited. Sure enough, the knock came, right on time. One solid hit, like someone knocking with the base of their knuckles. Not playful, not urgent, just deliberate. I waited 3 seconds, then looked through the peephole. Nothing. No movement, no shadow, no sound. The hallway was still. I started keeping track, set alarms, recorded the time. It was always 3:17 a.m., not a minute earlier or later. I asked some of the others on the floor if they'd noticed it too. Nina, who lived across from me, just nodded without looking up from her laptop. Started sleeping with headphones, she muttered. Try it. Helps. A guy named Chris, 2 doors down, leaned in close and said, "Don't answer it. Ever." Then walked off without explaining. By the end of that week, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just the knocking, it was the silence around it. The dorm always had some kind of background noise, pipes clicking, someone sneezing, phones buzzing, but in those few minutes around 3:17, everything just stopped. Like the building was holding its breath. I set up my phone to record the hallway one night, balanced it just outside the door, angled down toward the center. The next morning, I checked the video. The knock was there, clear. You could hear it perfectly. But the video? Empty hallway. No person. No shadow. No sign of anyone walking past. Just the knock. I played it over and over, scrubbing frame by frame. Nothing. I didn't know what I was expecting. Some trick of the light? A glitch? But the audio and video were synced. There should have been someone there. And yet, nothing. That night I stayed up with the door unlocked, sat in the dark, watching through the peephole. 3:17 came. I heard the knock, felt it through the wood, but when I looked out, same thing. Empty hallway. I should have let it be. I should have just done what the others did. But something about the precision of it got under my skin, like it wasn't a person playing a prank. It was a routine, a ritual, and I was part of it, whether I liked it or not. The next night, I made a decision. I was going to open the door the moment I heard the knock. Not peek through the peephole, not listen. Just open it and confront whoever or whatever was doing this. So I waited, sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at the knob, hand hovering over it. 3:16. I could hear the blood in my ears. 3:17. Knock. I flung the door open. The hallway was empty. But right at my feet, neatly folded, was a small piece of paper. No envelope, no markings, just a scrap, like torn from a notebook. I picked it up and unfolded it with shaking fingers. In plain block letters it read, "Wrong door. That estes." No signature, no explanation, just 2 words that made my skin crawl. That night, the knocking stopped. Not just for me, but for my door. I still heard it, starting with room 604, then 605, and so on, just like before. But it skipped mine completely. I thought maybe I'd broken the loop. Maybe it had moved on. But 2 nights later, Chris, the guy who warned me, packed up and left in the middle of the night. I watched him wheel his suitcase down the hallway, without saying a word. I texted him later. Just asked, "You good?" He replied 5 minutes later. I answered it, "You shouldn't have." That was the last message I ever got from him. His room's been empty since. No one new has moved in. Nina still wears her headphones every night. I asked her once if she'd heard anything unusual recently. She just looked at me and said, "It sets not about the sound. It sets about who it sets for." I still live in the same room. No more knocks. But sometimes I lie awake at 3:17, holding my breath and listen to the hallway outside. And I think about that note. Wrong door. I wonder if one day it'll knock again. And if it does, what happens if it finally gets the right one? She was sitting in the corner with her hood up, motionless. But when I passed her, she whispered my name. Not loudly, just enough to stop me in my tracks. It was midterms week. Thursday night, technically Friday morning. I was 3 hours deep into an energy drink-fueled cram session and running on zero real sleep. My roommate was snoring. Our room smelled like ramen and stress, and I needed somewhere else to think, somewhere quiet, Our dorm had a 24-hour study room down in the basement. Not fancy. Fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly overhead. One wall of grimy vending machines. Carpet so old the patterns had faded into dirt. But it was empty most nights after midnight, and that's what I needed. I grabbed my notes, laptop, and some snacks, and headed down. When I got there, the lights were already on. That was unusual. The room was empty, or I thought it was, until I saw her. A girl sat in the far corner, tucked into the shadows, near the broken printer. She was hunched over a textbook, wearing a gray hoodie pulled up tight around her head. Her hands were tucked under the sleeves, and she didn't look up when I came in. I gave a polite nod, the kind you give someone just to acknowledge you're not trying to bother them. She didn't react. I figured she was deep in it, like me, just another student pulled too thin, trying to survive the week. So I picked the table on the opposite side of the room and settled in. An hour passed, then two. I worked, highlighted passages, reread notes, typed up outlines, but every now and then I'd glance at her. She didn't set move, didn't shift, didn't flip a page, didn't even seem to breathe. It was weird, but I didn't let it get to me at first. Maybe she was asleep sitting up. Maybe she was waiting for someone. Or maybe, like me, she was just burned out and frozen in that zone where your brain won't cooperate anymore. But after the third hour, the unease started creeping in. There was something too still about her. The way her shoulders stayed at the same angle. The way her head remained slightly tilted like she was stuck mid-thought, but never finishing it. I checked my phone. 2:04 a punto. I was fried. I needed sleep. I packed up slowly, trying not to make noise, and headed for the door. I had to pass her to get there. Her corner table was near the only exit. As I approached, I kept my eyes down. Something about looking directly at her felt wrong. When I was just a few steps away, I heard it. A whisper. So faint I thought I imagined it. Natalie. I stopped walking. My breath caught. I hadn't spoken to her. I didn't have a name tag. No ID out. My name hadn't come up once since I entered that room. I turned slowly. She still sat there. Still hood up, face hidden, body locked in that same frozen position. But her head had tilted slightly more toward me. I didn't speak. I just backed away, quickly, clumsily, and left the room without another word. When I got back to my dorm, I locked the door and sat on my bed for what felt like hours, trying to figure out if I'd imagined it. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe I'd said my name aloud while talking to myself. That wasn't out of the question. I talk to myself when I study, ask questions, read things out loud. Still, I hadn't spoken in that room. I was sure of it. The next morning, I told my roommate. She looked up from her cereal and said, "Wait, was it a girl in a gray hoodie?" "Yeah," I said. "Did you see her?" She went pale. I don't mean metaphorically. Her skin actually lost color. She put the spoon down and said, "I've heard about her. People say she's steps been seen in that study room for years, always around midterms. Some kind of warning, I guess." "Warning for what?" "People say she shows up when someone SIP's about to fail out, or drop out, or worse." I laughed. "You still kidding?" She didn't laugh back. "They say if she looks at you, really looks at you, your semester sit-through's already done. You just don't know it yet." I tried to brush it off, said she was messing with me. But part of me couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted that night. That weekend, things started going wrong. My email glitched. I couldn't access my student portal. Every time I logged in, it gave me an error or showed me a blank screen. I thought it was a tech issue, but when I finally got through, two of my classes didn't show up, like I'd never registered for them. I went to my first exam Monday morning, and the professor looked confused. "Natalie, you didn't show up Friday," she said. "I assumed you dropped the course." "I didn't," I said. pulling out my schedule. Everything was right. But when she checked her roster, my name was gone. It happened again with another class. I went to the registrar SIP's office. They had no record of me being enrolled in either course. One clerk actually asked, "Are you sure you didn't submit a drop request online?" I didn't, Stat. I checked my calendar, my emails, everything. My name was gone from the course lists. My grades had vanished from the system. It was like I had never existed as a student at all. By Thursday, I was panicking. I hadn't told my parents yet. I didn't know how. That night, I went back down to the study room. It was empty. Same buzzing lights, same stale vending machines. But her table, the one in the corner, had something on it. A gray hoodie, folded neatly. I walked over, slowly, my heart pounding. There was a piece of paper under it. I picked it up. It was a withdrawal form, signed, dated. My name already printed at the top. And at the bottom, in my own handwriting except I never wrote it, was my signature. I stood there in silence for a long time. I don't know if I ever saw her face. I don't wouldn't know if I ever want to. But I know that after that night, I stopped being a student. Not officially, not on paper, but in every other way, I was done. Like she had already decided that for me. I never went back to that study room. I don't even think it's meant to be a room anymore. Just a space, waiting for the next name.